Welcome to Tea Read Lightly, a podcast where two dinosaurs talk about books. Today we're talking about Artemis Fowl by Ian Collifer, and I'm in fact joined today by Mike because Trex has exams. Say hi.
Hello, it is I am here.
Yeah. So yeah, Trex is in the middle of exams, so we thought we'd give her a break from having to read in not her first language and find somebody else who can do that part for her. And it's Mike!
Joke's on you because I actually can't read, so doing my best too.
Cool, so you're just gonna bullshit the whole thing today?
No, I mean, I was making a joke that I was illiterate, but it's, I did my best.
You could have got the audiobook, jeez.
that was checked out of the library. I couldn't get it. It's amazing how popular this book is.
Stay back, human. You don't know what you're dealing with. 12-year-old Artemis Fowl is a brilliant criminal mastermind, but even Artemis doesn't know what he's taken on when he kidnaps a fairy, Captain Holly Short of the LEP Recon Unit. These aren't the fairies of bedtime stories. These fairies are armed and they're dangerous. Artemis thinks he's got them just where he wants them, but then they stopped playing by the rules. Dun dun dun! So, what did you think? Without any spoilers.
Without any spoilers, right. I really liked Artemis Fowl. I remember reading it as a kid and immediately being drawn to like his kind of like matter of fact, I'm smarter than you. I have all these plans and everything's just going to work out in my favor because I'm so smart. I think like 5 steps ahead of everyone. And because he's so young, it was like, wow, I wish I could be like that smart, as a kid. Then reading it back, I'm like, wow, he's like kind of annoying a little bit, the way he like talks down to people. But I think, yeah, he's a kind of a dick. But yeah, I think like as the first book of like a very good series, I think I read up till the 5th book. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I like the world building that kind of gets established early on, and kind of the way the author rather, goes back and forth between the perspectives with Artemis and the fairy.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with you. I think it's really good world building, and I only read the first 5 books. Do you know the series is still going? He's still writing books.
Right, but here's the thing. I stopped reading it when I got to, I think I was either a sophomore or junior in high school because I started reading another book series and that one had way more books out. So I kind of like forgot about where I was in the Artemis Fowl series. And so I didn't realize he had created more books until I got to college. And then at that point I was like, oh, I'm so far behind. I can't like catch back up. But actually now that I can. Yeah, it was kind of like I'm too busy or whatever. But I was too busy reading other books to read another book. But I've kind of like
nerd.
I know, right? Since you've like spurred me on to read this, I actually really enjoyed it and it gave me a lot of nostalgic memories. So I'm thinking I'm probably gonna try to reread some of the other books because again it's been like 10 years, but I would like to catch up to the whole series at least before the movie releases, so I can be more disappointed when the movie comes out. But hopefully the movie will be good. I don't know. I mean, I can be optimistic about it, I guess. That's all I can do.
Yeah, look, I'm hoping that the movie's good. I will probably, well, I think I'm going to try and watch it in cinemas if we can go back into watching things in cinemas, or I will be watching it at home, but I'm definitely going to watch it, whether or not it's disappointing.
Oh, yeah. For sure. I mean, I have Disney Plus now, so if it comes out on that, then I'm definitely going to, take a gander at it.
Yeah, I've been using my sister's Disney Plus account to catch up on all the Star Wars movies. So
nice.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess how would you rate this book out of 5?
Out of 5 stars, I think if I were as a kid, I would rate it 5 stars because I loved this book when I first read it. Rereading it, I think I would rate it like maybe 3.5 stars. I think it does a good job, but I've read other books that I was like more invested in, I guess. So I can't give it like a 5-star rating. And there were some problems with the book that I was just kind of like, it's like slightly annoying the way this world is like being established, and like a few like like why did he write it like this? That doesn't really make any sense. And like as a kid, I didn't like overthink it that much, but now as an adult, I'm like, that seems like a weird like science thing. I don't know if he really like researched that all the way, whatever. But it's his story, so he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, and this book came out, at least the copy I have is from 2001. So like we've got 20 years worth of science since that point. So I think it's a little bit unfair to like comment on the science too much, you know?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I mean, I think you said 2001, right? Like that's
Yeah.
I was like 6 or something. So yeah, probably like a 4 then, probably 4
Yeah.
stars.
So I'm inclined to give it a 4-star rating as well, keeping in mind that like this is a children's, like a young adult book. So like it's not necessarily written for people that are our age, and I think that it's easy to consume. It's good world building. The characters are really strong. I like that Holly, like I like Holly. She does not give a fuck. She's like up and coming police officer. She's just like handles her shit, and I'm always about like strong female characters, particularly ones that
Yeah.
aren't too overbearing. So yeah, again, I'd give it a 4.
Yeah,
Four
she's
stars
got
out of
some
5.
spunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like her spunk. And also that she's not like really afraid of Artemis. I mean, cuz Artemis is kind of like a little dick with his like personality, but she's just kind of like, like this is not the best situation to be in, but like I'm not like really afraid of him. I can like hold my own.
Yeah. Which is pretty good. I mean, he's creepy as flock because he's a 12-year-old boy, but he's
Yeah.
just got like no emotions. And I think they keep record of the number of jokes that he makes in the book, and the answer is 3. And he's like, "Whoa, gotta be careful. I don't want to turn into a clown." So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a bit wild by the end of the book.
Hmm.
Yeah. So all right, if you haven't read this book, go read this book and come back. We're gonna go into the spoilers section now. Just like
Woo!
walk our way through the plot.
Nice.
Yeah,
Spoiler time.
indeedy do. So we get introduced to Artemis Fowl in his. Actually, I think we get a prologue, which kind of introduces him as this criminal mastermind from somebody's psych of eval. So there's a fairy psych who's giving us a rundown on the psychopath that is Artemis Fowl. And from there we get introduced to him in his endeavor to find a fairy in it's not, I can't remember do you remember what the city is?
I think it's in Ireland somewhere. Or is it
No,
France?
okay, so they're in Ho Chi Minh. When they're trying to follow up with their contact about
Oh, the first ferry. Yeah,
Yeah.
the first ferry.
first
Ho Chi Minh.
fairy. Yeah. So he's been trawling through the internet and using sheer tenacity. He gets a hold of an actual sprite, a fairy, and then proceeds to steal their magical book. We then have a series of we go through the process of him basically decoding it using Egyptian hieroglyphs.
Yeah.
And from there he comes up with a plan to basically kidnap a fairy and separate them from their gold.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the best part about that like short sequence, I think it shows you a lot about Artemis as like a person. So like it establishes one, he's like filthy rich essentially. He has resources that like no normal 12-year-old should have access to. And they go into like his backstory about like how his family has like a criminal history through like a very long time. I forget how far back his family's been around for like centuries, like all over the world, controlling the way things are. But his dad's like missing, and his mom's like bedridden with some sort of illness. So he's basically has all the freedom in the world to do what he wants, and he decides to chase after fairies. And I think there's like a line in the beginning chapters where it's like no one else can really pull this off because he has like the childish wonder of like a kid to still believe in fairies, but like the mental fortitude of an adult to like actually get the job done.
Yeah, and the financial backing of like hundreds of years of illegal activities. So
right, yeah, it's like a weird, like he's the only person who could have like figured this out, and they make that very clear, like he's that special, but also like a lot of the other characters before he like eventually catches like a fairy, a lot of the other characters, Butler's sister, what was her name? Juliet, yes, she was just kind of like, you realize fairies don't exist, right? Like she's just like she's like going along, but she's like, this is kind of silly.
Yeah, I mean, right up until he gets a fairy, and then
she's like, oh, okay, sorry, I doubted you, master guy.
Yeah, and I think that the relationship between Butler and Artemis is pretty interesting as well, because like Butler is more of a father figure to Artemis than Artemis's own father was when he was around, before he tried to intrude on the Russian mafia and ended up getting shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so his boat got blown up. Anyway, so yeah, the relationship between Butler and Artemis is interesting because Butler has no friends except for Artemis, and Artemis uses Butler as kind of a father figure, which is very odd. Kind of dynamic, because he can give Butler orders. And I like that they talk about the fact that Butler might be the moniker, so for the job, the role of being a butler might have come from
the family.
This family line where he's a cordon bleu chef, but he also has like all this other kind of military training and first aid training and all these like pretty epic skills.
Yeah, he's like the perfect like Alfred. Like if Artemis was Batman, he can just kind of do everything for him. And I like how their family has been like tied to the Fowl family for like generations. And they're like paired up at like birth. So Butler's just like, they need to be like, the duo needs to be self-sufficient in the sense that like Fowl just needs to be rich and smart, and Butler can like do everything else.
Yeah.
And that kind of how their dynamic duo works.
And it's pretty epic just in general. Cool. So that established, we go on to them attempting to kidnap Holly Short. So Holly is introduced to us by her attempt to stop a troll from destroying an Italian restaurant in Italy, rather than an Italian restaurant, and her interceding because a small child asks for help and trying to then like rectify the situation, only to have her superiors come down hard because they're not supposed to interfere with humans, and then her magic's running low and just shit that could go wrong does go wrong, and she kind of gets reamed out by her boss and told that she needs to go and like top up her magic. And they do that by going to an ancient oak tree, getting an acorn, and planting that somewhere else. But it has to be a full moon, and the oak tree has to be on a bend in a river. So, not a lot of those around.
I remember reading, they make a point to say like the last time she did her ritual was 4 years ago. And like obviously full moons don't like happen very often, but there's a lot of full moons she could have done this. And because she's
4 years,
there's a lot of opportunities to do this. And because this ritual seems like super important, like the book that Artemis stole from the first sprite is basically like their Bible, and it has like their history and all the stuff that they're supposed to do. And this is like a very important ritual. And the fact that Holly hasn't done it in 4 years seemed to me like a weird character flaw for some reason, because she's a police officer and she seems very like self-sufficient and like good at her job. I was like surprised, like that was like this was like the crutch to like get her to here.
I think not really. She's really busy. She's fighting for, female leprechaun rights in that, she's the first female officer and she's under a lot of pressure to perform. So she's probably doing a lot of things being like, oh no, this can wait. Like, I'm not running low yet. This can wait. Like, I can handle this. It's not an issue. It's not an issue right up until it's like a massive issue, So I can.
It definitely like blows up in her face, but she was clearly super busy for a while.
Yeah, and I think that's, and she's such a hothead. Like, I can definitely see her being like super dismissive of it. So, I don't really think I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility, but it is one of her character flaws. That and her fucking temper.
Yeah, I think it was I like the dynamic she had with her commanding officer. What was his name? Not Holly Short. Root, yeah, Root. So like she was like I like how she's like empowered, like female fairy, she's the first one on the force, but Root's kind of like pushing her to like be better than everybody else because she's like the first example. And like he's like hard on her because he wants her to do a good job, but at first he sees it like he's just being like a jerk to her because she's a girl.
Asshole. Yeah.
Yeah, and then afterwards he's like, no, like I want you to do really good, because everyone else is basically like everyone else is gonna look at you like you're just a girl, so you have to like be perfect essentially.
Yeah. You have to be better than literally everything and everyone.
Yeah, and that made me like him like a little bit more. Like he's like trying to like help her in his own way as opposed to just being like a jerk. But then like when she's in trouble, he like, oh, we need our best person to like go save her. He's like, no, I'm gonna go myself. Like he's like,
I am the best person.
He's like, I'm the best person. So I was like, okay, maybe he has a little bit of an ego, but like this clearly like this is important enough to him that he decides to step in himself personally.
And like she is important to him as well. She's one of his officers. He's super like he's committed to his team and his underlings basically. Anyway, so she gets kidnapped and they make a point of mentioning that all of the technology that they use in the kidnapping is like Fowl patented. Because he like Artemis has just been designing this equipment and then he doesn't like sell it to the military. He always sells it to sporting goods stores to like undercut the military.
What was that about? Like honestly, I was so confused when I read that. I like read it 3 times. I was like, he sold it to us. Like I was like, I definitely don't remember this from my first read, and I was like, wow, that's just such a like a haha, like F you money. Like I don't care.
Well, I think he probably does make more if he makes percentages on sales. He probably does make more from selling it to a sporting goods store.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure he's good with contracting and stuff. But I kind of when I read it the first time, I read it as like, wow, he just like doesn't really want the military to like only have access to it, and he just doesn't care enough to like be like, haha, I'm gonna sell it to this place instead, as kind of like his own like childish. Like, I don't really care about the military, whatever.
I don't think he supports the military very much. He's also anti-whaling.
Fair, yeah.
Anyway, so, cool equipment aside, they manage to kidnap Holly, steal her away. They realize that she's being tracked, and he disassembles their tracking device and proceeds to stick a camera on it and then put it on a whaler along with some Semtech. And we get an insight into what their technology is like. The fact that everything is kind of like sealed with magnets. They don't have screws anymore.
And a lot of it's like nuclear powered too, right?
Yeah.
Don't they mention that? Like, okay, yeah. That's a pretty big advancement. Cool.
Yeah, tiny nuclear reactors everywhere. It's very Iron Man, in fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he sends that off on a whaler, and then he takes Holly back to his mansion, the family mansion.
the dungeon basement of the family mansion, right? He like sets
Yeah.
up a room specifically designed for her.
Yeah, there's no dirt, no nothing. She can't touch the ground. She's kept basically trapped in concrete.
Mhm.
So then we have an instance where Commander Root has decided to get back into his uniform. And, you know, there's people mocking him because he's a bit pudgy and he's not quite as skilled as he once was. As he's flying out, he's really nervous.
Yeah, I can perfectly see that as like in the movie, that like comical scene of like him putting it on, just like, oh, I can't, like, where's my belt here? I gotta, like, I can just see it in my head. I'm like, oh my god, it'll be so great. And he just kind of flies out with like his butt showing.
Well, they specifically mention that his gut protrudes, and he's like, in his own mind, he's talking about that being like because they're jamming all these extra equipment into these suits these days. But it's like skin tight lycra with a belt on it, so like.
Yeah.
Extra equipment there. Yeah. So Root follows the tracking device off to the whaler. And he's like super concerned because he's like, this is going to be like really, if this goes wrong, it's going to be really wrong because there's one way in, there's one way out, there's metal everywhere, I can't see. And he's got the ultraviolet filter on so that he can see better than like, because there's no light down there. But it fucks with his depth perception, so he keeps knocking his head on things, which I thought was pretty entertaining.
Also, the fact that Foley the Centaur is like talking to him for most of this time, and he's just kind of like super witty and like cracking jokes all the time.
Yeah, right up until he's like, they get too far into the ship and it's like lead covered, and they're like, we can't get any signals in or out of this, like, this piece of crap. It's too heavily shielded, effectively. Anyway, so Root finally gets where the beacon is, and he realizes that there's no people there. There's no life forms on that side of the ship. And he gets a conversation with Artemis, who like specifically tells him his name, you know, so that they can find him. He's not trying to be sneaky. Yeah. And Root's like, oh, he's just being super cocky and all this kind of thing. And the Centaur Foley just goes, you know, look, I'm concerned, like, he did it on purpose. Like, he's a couple of steps ahead. Like, he knows what's going on, and we have no idea.
Yeah, and they've already established like Foley being as like a really smart character because he like set up all of their systems, but he's also super paranoid.
Yeah, so, he wears a tinfoil hat.
Yeah, so it's like if this guy's concerned, you should like heed his advice because this guy's like a genius compared to all the other, you know, magical creatures down there.
Yeah. Well, on some things. I think the fact that he does wear a tinfoil hat kind of like takes away.
Genius, but like a little bit crazy. Just a drop of crazy.
Cool. And then he heads. The ship blows up. Root's trying to escape. He manages to make it off, and then he's like, I need this, and this. Like, we're sending it out. Like, we're getting all these recon teams. Like, bring the time-stopping tool. Where, like, we're gonna take the mansion. La 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 la. And so they basically set up a hostage negotiation kind of situation. Yeah. And they get their like SWAT team out and all that jazz. Cool. In the meantime, we have a couple of interactions between Holly and Artemis.
Yep.
Artemis lies to her, telling her that she's the one that's given up all of the fairy secrets, rather than him knowing about the book. He tells her that she's been out for like 3 days, but been on the truth serum drip.
Drug, yeah. Yeah, that drug. Oof.
Yeah. And she's like, you could have killed me, la 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 la. And he's like, yeah, I could have, but I didn't. So we're fine. But you get, because we're in his perspective for these conversations, we get a lot of him being like, I didn't realize she'd be so human. And there's a couple of moments in it I'm like, this is a little bit sexist, and like she's a girl like my mom, and like
Yeah, that was
Juliet,
weird.
and
Yeah.
yeah. I didn't find it so weird when I first read it, in like when the book came out, but I did have some issue with it in this particular read where I was like,
Yeah, it didn't feel like it really like it doesn't really advance the plot in any way to have that like line in there. Because like one, Julia is a badass in of herself, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know much
She's a
about
bit of an
Artemis's.
idiot, but she's a badass.
Yeah, she's a badass, and we don't know much about Artemis's mom except for the fact that I mean, I guess she's like rich and that she is a mom and that she's like sick somehow. But like it doesn't, the comparison doesn't seem warranted because one, Artemis doesn't even seem to have that much empathy for people in general. So
Yeah.
it's like, why is he making this mental comment? Is this supposed to make him seem more like human, like he has some like shred of humanity, but also like that doesn't really help either. I don't know. I'm not really sure like what that was supposed to mean in the scheme of the plot.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to kind of soften Artemis a little bit, and therefore make the ending a little bit more predictable. Like we're not surprised when the character makes that decision.
Yeah,
So,
I guess. Yeah, sure.
Cool. So a couple of interactions with Holly. He kind of shares with her his evil plan, which makes
Evil
no
plan.
sense.
Yeah.
I don't know why we have a Bond villain moment. Yeah, he's just after the money. He doesn't really want her injured or any of the other things, so.
It's okay.
Yeah. So once the SWAT team arrives, this is like one of my favorite scenes with Butler. Butler is actually my favorite character in these books. So Artemis breaks apart Holly's helmet, and basically gives Butler these the visor equipped with the ability to like see through the shielding that the
You can see the fairies.
Yeah, so he can see the fairies, and none of the fairies realize this, and basically, so the SWAT team is like sneaking down the driveway, and they're like spread out. And then they're like, oh, one of us is dead. Oh, not dead, knocked out. Like, let's regroup. Everybody come together. We'll make, like, a united stand. And they're like, well, looks like, I think it's number 4, he was standing too close to the door. And Butler has opened the door and, like, knocked him out on this massive door. Mm-hmm. And we get one of the comments being like, oh, no, he's been knocked out by the door. So I've hidden him in a shrub. And then everybody, like, goes back to regroup. And they see Butler, like, lumbering down the driveway. And they're like, he can't see us. It's fine. Everybody just, like, stay silent. And, like, don't move. Like, just in case. And he just, like, walks straight into the middle of them. And then he goes, evening, gentlemen. And he proceeds to just, like, mow them down with gunfire.
Yeah, I like how he makes a comment like it's the... like different race, same like ego or something.
Yeah.
He's just like, this is like the same shit dealing with like people that they're just like, oh yeah, we've got him surrounded. He can't stop us. And Butler's like, yeah, okay. Let's see how this is gonna work out for you.
Yeah, which is badly. It works out badly for them. And there's only one guy that's left, and he's Corporal Grubb, who honestly shits me to no end. I hate him.
I think you're supposed to not like him though. That's like,
I know. Mr. Qualifier has done a great job in like creating a character I loathe. And we get like a single interaction with him, and I still hate him. And Butler's like, you can retreat if you're injured. But if I see any kind of weaponry on any of your medics, like, I will take you out with the sniper rifle.
I'll light you up. I'm gonna light you up.
Basically. Yeah. And then he's like, can I get you to collect all of the equipment and put it in a pile? And he's like, no. And so Butler like collects all of their stuff. All their helmets.
He's like an officer never relinquishes his weapon, and it's like, well, if you're not gonna give it to me, then I'm just gonna take it.
Yeah. Which, kind of fun.
Yeah. I
Um,
like the small banter in between, like the pacing of this book. I feel like it has good tempo where there's like, you know, big action scene, big action scene, big action scene, but in between there's like small little tidbits of like, hey, let's just talk for a little bit, have some banter, and then boom, another thing happens.
yeah, which is pretty exciting. Um, so then they decide to do the proper time stop. So fairies have the ability to cast like a pause in time over a certain like space. This is apparently what they used to do during Christmas, so that everybody could get gifts in an attempt to like curb humanity's greed. They would get mystery gifts on Christmas,
Oh
but
yeah,
that
it's
didn't
like
work out. So they
no,
stopped doing
no.
that.
Really quick, the in the beginning of the book they talk about how like the fairies are kind of used to be like the dominant race like on Earth, and now they all live underground, like hiding from the humans essentially, or the mud people, because I guess humans used to live in the mud back then. Uh, but like Holly mentions that like the only reason the humans won, or like I guess were able to overpower the fairies, is because the fairies take 20 years to like reproduce, and people like multiply like rabbits by comparison. So she was like the numbers were just apparently overwhelming or something, but she's like, wow, I really wish we like had fought back, because it's surprising to me like they have all this really cool technology and like weaponry and like magic, and it's like they're like hiding from us essentially.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, wow, it can't like how did we get so lucky?
I think because we're super destructive and we have the numbers on our side, and also that they've got such. So like there might be a lot of them, but there are so many different races in the Fey world, and to get them all to like unite to like take back the surface wouldn't
Would be
really have like
difficult.
yeah
Yeah. I mean, humans fight each other on a regular basis, and like the whole beginning sequence of like just a troll being like a problem for, the fairies and elves to deal with is like clearly the different magical creatures are like all united, I guess.
yeah.
Um, Plus they drop a little teaser like for future books. Like apparently there were demons at one point, and like the first fairy king and the first human king, I guess, helped each other and stopped the demon guy, and they like won at this big battle. It's like in the history books. So that was like kind of cool, like small little world building for future books.
Yeah, and like they do set up a lot of there's like a lot of lore established in this first book, and I think he's done a very good job of that.
For sure.
Yeah. Cool. So where are we up to? Time stop?
Yep.
Yeah. So the time stop starts to give them a little bit more to give them what, 8 hours extra to push through to try and like negotiate and take back get back their officer.
Uh-huh.
So I think the next thing they try is they bring in Mulch Diggums.
Mulch. I like Mulch.
Yeah.
I think he's probably one of my favorite characters.
So he is a dwarf, and he is a nefarious criminal in the fairy community. He has a
Yep.
habit of digging his way into bank vaults, I believe,
Yep.
and proceeding to steal the contents and then disappear off into the night. So, um, the rules that govern magic and the Fae is that they have to be given permission to enter a building.
Yep.
Otherwise, they lose their magic. And because Mulch is already like breaking into places all the time, he's already like forfeit his magic. He doesn't have magic, it doesn't slow him down at all, and it doesn't prevent him from doing anything. So they're like, okay, we're going to use this criminal, and we're going to get him to burrow in, steal Holly, and then come back.
Yes, and I like how when they bring Mulch in, we briefly encounter him in the beginning of the book, like he's being checked in for some whatever crime he's committed, and like as he's being like booked, he's like pickpocketing everyone along the way until
Yeah.
Holly like sees him doing it. She's like the only one paying attention because she's like actually good at her job, and she like zaps him, and she's like, "Hey buddy, like how's it going? Nice to see you here again." And he like drops all of the stuff he was like stealing.
And
So the fact that
puts
they like
the
bring him
other
back,
officer to shame.
yeah, it's like, oops, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. So the fact they like bring him back is like kind of cool. Like, oh hey, here's Mulch. You know, this like this wasn't a throwaway character. He's like actually like really relevant.
Yeah. So Mulch tunnels in, and instead of actually managing to find Holly, he ends up finding Artemis's copy of the book. So that being the Bible of the
Fairies.
Fae that he had stolen from the sprite in the opening in Ho Chi Minh. And I think from that point on, he goes to like head back underground to see if he can try Holly again, but he bumps into a bunch of rabbits, and he can't not take the opportunity to fake his own death by having a in air quotes cave in and attaching his like monitor to the rabbit and having the poor rabbit die on his behalf.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he is a criminal, right? They knew that going into it. Like it's exactly on brand for him to be like, ha, now I'm gonna double cross them somehow.
Yeah, so he fakes his own death and heads out.
I don't quite recall. Does it explain why he like takes just the Bible? Like, is that worth something to him? Because I thought like all the fairies had one, right?
All the fairies have one. He doesn't take the Bible. He like reports the information, and like he takes it away from Artemis so that Artemis doesn't have a copy anymore. Like they don't want him to have the copy of the Bible, but
Right.
he doesn't really get an opportunity to do much more because like I think Butler's on incoming.
Right, yeah. I wasn't sure if he was just like gonna sell it again or something, like what his plan in the future was with it. Because he's gonna fake his death, so it wasn't like he was gonna give it back to Holly or like one of the other fairy officers.
No, I think he's just on board with the humans not having a copy of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, it's one of their sacred rules. Um, yeah, so that brief interlude over on one of our most entertaining characters no longer in the story, for now.
Bum bum bum.
Yeah, so...
Butler cuts him off, right?
No, so then we get a little bit of fairy politics, right? So they decide that nothing has happened. They're wasting time. They've lost a criminal. Shit's going south on the surface, and so the fairy council intervenes and promotes one of the lieutenants into the acting commander, temporarily usurping
Root, right?
Root, yeah. And it's Cudgeon? Is that with Brian Cudgeon, I think it is? Or Briar Cudgeon. And he decides to release a troll into the
house.
Into the house, yeah, with the intent being that, you know, they're gonna cry out for help when they're being attacked by a troll, and then that's free reign of
invitation.
entry. Yeah.
And there was also like the lawyer. I don't know if it was like they were like talking about like he said basically for entry is forbidden as long as he's alive, and they were like that's basically an invitation to go when he's dead. So like if he dies, we can go in. And so they're like worst case scenario.
Yeah. So if we kill him, then we can go in.
Yeah, and I was wondering like how that like works if like the invitation like is Artemis doesn't necessarily own the house, right? Technically, it's his mom's house, like or her mom owns the mansion.
I think yes, but because of her failing mental state, he is effectively master of the house.
Right.
It is his home, and therefore he has dominion over it. So I feel like they could also have gotten permission from Butler or Juliet, who live there, except that they also defer to Artemis. Does that
Yeah,
make
it
sense?
really so it doesn't really matter like who says come in as long as it's someone who's like in that house, right?
Yeah, someone who lives there.
Okay. Yeah.
So like if it had been a normal house, like your mom or you or your dad or any siblings that you have could like allow a fairy to enter the premises because it is your home, but because of the master servant relationship that the butlers have with the fowls, I don't think they would have done it without the express permission of the fowl in charge.
Yeah, I think it was interesting how like that sort of um like element of the world is established to kind of create sort of like tension because otherwise like it would be too easy for them to just like go in guns blazing. Uh but it also reminded me of like vampires too. Like vampires have to ask for permission to like come in. So I was wondering if like that's where he got that idea from or if he just like was like, let me just put
Possibly.
this limit on them somehow. Because that was the first thing that I thought. I was like, oh, vampires have to do the same thing. Do vampires exist in this universe too? Is this like a thing for everybody? Because you could lose your magic, and if a vampire forces his way in, he loses the magic that keeps him alive as a vampire. I guess I don't know. I was like, some my thoughts were pondering.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, now that you've mentioned it, it does kind of make sense that if like the vampires are one of the Fae, at least in this kind of story, that would make sense that they would be bound by the same kind of deal.
Yeah, we've got dwarves, fairies, sprites, demons,
Goblins,
trolls,
yeah.
goblins. We got a lot of magical creatures, so I was like, yeah, maybe they exist.
Yeah. I don't know if they really count as the Fae though. Okay. That aside. So in the meantime, Holly has managed to keep the acorn that she stolen or she picked up at the beginning of the book with her, and she manages to create enough dust in her cell by smashing her bed frame against the wall that she can technically bury the acorn and therefore have her magic restored. And
Yeah, I was under the impression that that had to be done under a full moon.
I think that she has to get the acorn during the full moon. I don't know that she necessarily has to plant it in the full moon, but there isn't a like it's still within the same night in the book anyway, right? They don't
Oh yeah, because they freeze time, right? So I
yeah.
guess, yeah, okay. Yeah, I was wondering if there was some sort of loophole that they could just like, one person goes, collects a bunch of seeds during a full moon, and then like redistributes them to other people, or do you have to be the one to grab it, get it yourself? I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, well I think that it does have to be a personable thing. It's like your own pilgrimage, right?
Yeah, to
Yeah.
give back to the earth.
Yeah. Cool. So, we've got that aside. Then the troll arrives at the house and basically uh Artemis gets locked in the library,
Hmm.
or in the study, which effectively has a safe room door. And I love the moment here where he goes like, he didn't even try opening the door because like it's this huge steel door, and he was 12. He wasn't going to be like, there was no point in doing that. He just turned to the cameras effectively and watched what happened next. And then I think he sends a message to Foley, um, being like time for negotiating is over. Like bring me my gold, a ton of gold, or like I'm going to kill Holly. Like like it's now or never.
Yeah.
Um yeah. So Troll enters the building and it's Butler versus a troll.
Oh yeah, in like a medieval suit of armor, right? Like he's just like,
Well,
we're just gonna go.
so he has a couple of like hits like from the get go, and I think Holly kind of is somewhat taken by Juliet, sorry, because she's like innocent in this whole situation, and she's not doing any of this because she wants to. She just this is where her family is. This is how her life has ended up. So Holly's somewhat sympathetic to her. And then I think it's the troll comes like burrowing in, and Butler's trying to like get Holly and Juliet out of the way and takes a massive blow from the troll that effectively would kill him. Then Holly heals Butler. Butler chucks on the antique armor, and then they go blow for blow.
Yeah, it's like no one touches my sister.
Yeah,
we're gonna go, buddy.
Yeah, which is kind of awesome. And then
and Juliet is alive still at the end.
She's unconscious,
okay.
but she's alive.
Yeah.
At least in this moment. And so Butler's like, okay, it looks like a human. I'm gonna assume the anatomy's the same. I'm gonna like cut tendons and smash it on the head. And then Holly tries to intervene, being like, don't kill it. And he's like, fine, I won't kill it, but only because you saved my life.
Yeah, you owe me.
Yeah.
But that's cool. I feel like the brawl was a little short for me. I wanted to see him like I just wanted to read more about him fighting a troll with like his bare hands and turn on some like wrestling moves, but yeah, he like beats the troll.
He's not one of the wrestlers though. Like Juliet. Yeah,
Juliet's all into wrestling, but I want to do like maybe like some judo or some, like Russian grappling. Like he knows so many martial arts. I like reading like combat scenes in books. I really get into that because I like to imagine it in my head like a mini movie.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see that scene in the movie.
Yeah.
It basically gets to the point where he takes the troll and literally throws it out the door, and then everything goes hey fucking wire back at like Command Central where all the fairies are at. They're like, holy shit, he defeated the troll.
They're like, a human beat a troll? What is going on? Yeah. And then even Foley's just like, wow. Like nobody remarked. He's just like, wow.
Yeah, so that kind of ruins Cudgeon's plan to like usurp power. And the Fairy Council is immediately like, well, that was a terrible plan, and like strips him of his post, and then Commander Root's back in charge.
Yeah, the politics for them is just like, I'm just imagining like a bunch of elves sitting around just like watching this on the screen. They're just like, what was that about? Like terrible, like a Congress like trying to like, they're like pressing a button like, no, bad plan. Like, what is this? No,
everybody's having bad ideas. Anyway, so they settle on delivering Artemis the gold and then sending what they call the blue rinse or the biobomb.
Yeah.
So the idea being that the bomb just kills off every living thing that's caught in the time stop. So this is where we get interesting about like Artemis being adamant that he can get out of the time stop before the blue rinse. And everybody,
he's like aware of it at that point, right? He like knows beforehand.
Yeah, so it was kind of like outlined in the book, which you're like, damn, there's a lot of like ancient technology in this book. Does it get updated? Like
he knows so much about. I mean, first of all, the biobomb is like a great weapon, I guess, for them to use. Like how often do they use it, and like how often do they really need to improve on it? But yeah, the fact that he like knows all this stuff is just like, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And it's all written down in their Bible, like seriously.
The one thing they don't want their enemy to get is like, here are all of the secrets.
Yeah. Cool. So, the gold goes in. Holly's like, don't do this, don't be this person, you're gonna die. Like, Juliet, she's really taken with Juliet. Like, why would you bring an innocent into this? And he's like, no, I got it handled. And she's like, why? I've got it handled. Why? I've got it handled. Shut up. So he gets Butler and Juliet to start unloading the gold, which has arrived. And then he takes Holly aside, and he's like, how much would it cost to have a wish? Ooh. And she's like, depends what you have to negotiate, looking at the gold. And he's like, all right, let's talk. So then Holly goes back out with like a chunk of the gold. I think by appearances it looks like all of the gold, and that's kind of like why everybody's like so proud when she's like coming out. She's like, got the gold, everything's gonna be all right. And then they're like, all right, let's do it, let's send in this bomb. We've got like a few seconds left. You can see that the time stop is like beginning to break up in the sky, and like dawn is coming through.
They have like wizards powering the bomb. the time stop, I mean, right?
Yeah, wizards power the time stop.
Wizards. Yeah. I just love the idea of like a bunch of guys like with their hands up straining like focus focus, and they
Yeah.
can like charge it with like a battery, like put some magic power in a battery and like recharge it, but like they don't have a lot of those, so they're just kind of like we got like this narrow time frame now.
Yeah. So they what happens next? Oh, cool. So then we cut to like Artemis and Juliet and Butler celebrating their gold with like Dom Perignon because they're fancy. And Artemis is like, I don't think Mum would like mind. It's just a single glass. Everything's gonna be fine. Turns out he's drugged it. They all ate the sleeping pills and kind of pass out. The bio bomb goes off.
Yep.
And then all the fairy recon, the LEP recon, head into the building. Yeah. And start getting violently ill.
Yep.
Because he's not dead, and so they can't enter. Because he hasn't given them permission. And they're like, he's like, oh no, he did it.
He didn't die.
Yeah, he didn't die. He succeeded in foiling us.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which is like really big because they're just like, holy shit, he survived the bio bomb. And like they were like, oh, it's perfectly safe to go in. Like there was not a doubt in their mind that they're like, oh, they're dead. They're dead. There's the blue light flash. They're like, yep, everything's dead.
Yeah. So like there was no consideration at all that they could possibly be alive. And they're getting in there and like the first two people enter. So Holly enters because she's leading the charge and she's fine. The next two people enter and get violently ill. Then Root's like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And like pushes them out of the way and then also is like sick. And our stupid grub little shit from before doesn't manage to get his visor open in time and spews bile on the inside of his helmet. It becomes an embarrassment.
Oh my god.
He gets his comeuppance.
Yeah. That's gonna be a great scene in the movie.
Yeah. Yes, it will be. I'm excited. There are like moments in this book that I'm really excited to see on screen, and I really hope they do it well.
Yeah, it has a lot of potential. I hope it's really good. I always like the nostalgia of seeing like part of my childhood like put on the big screen. You know, I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all pretty exciting. So then we get like the final scene from Artemis's point of view, and it's basically Butler interrogating Artemis as to why he drugged his sister.
Yeah, like, is this safe? Like, how could you do this? Like,
yeah.
Hey.
And then Artemis is like, no, but I tested it on my mother. It's fine.
Like, yeah. Well, first of all, like, what? You tested it on your mother? Come on, man.
Well, he did. So, like, he drugged his mother, and she left the time stream, and he's like, if it hadn't have worked, I definitely would have like forfeit. We would have been fine. Like, as long as we could like keep the helmets and we can make plenty of money. And he was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'm glad this worked out because like you fucking put us all at risk.
Yeah. I like too how like this was basically like a theory, right? Like he like even though it all worked out and his plan worked, like he didn't know he wasn't 100% sure that like his mom would have been like when he tested his mom that it was going to work. Or he had to test his mom in the first place. So yeah, it's kind of like he was like rolling the die there. Like he was confident but not 100% sure, and all of his other plans like he was 100% sure was going to work. Yeah. So this was like a big risk technically still.
For him, he's not a risk taker. Given that he only made 3 jokes in the entire book, and he is worried that he's going to become a clown because he made 3 jokes.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So we get one other scene, which is Mulch not being dead, tunneling into the LEP Recon office, stealing some of the gold, and then disappearing off into the night again. Yeah, which is pretty exciting. He's like, I'm gonna like pretend I'm a human dwarf and like buy myself a Manhattan apartment with like thick curtains and live the high life on all this gold.
Oh yeah, I'm just a really short, stubby human. No one
Yeah.
really gonna notice. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
and
that's cool.
yeah. And then our very final scene is what we find out that Artemis's wish was for. So
Yeah. Which is really sweet. I think it's great that he used his wish to basically save his mom, and get her back.
So yeah, he seems to have asked for his mom to be better. And she comes downstairs and is like, "Oh, I failed to get you a Christmas gift." And he's like, "What?" She's like, "It's
Like
Christmas." And he's like, "Oh, this is the greatest gift of all."
yeah, I was like, is it actually Christmas? Did I miss that somewhere in the book, or is she just thinking it's Christmas because she's been like out for so long?
I think it might actually be Christmas, but it had never occurred to Artemis to like keep doing the Christmas thing
Yeah.
because he's got other shit to
Why?
do.
Yeah, yeah. It was a really sweet moment because he's like, ah, she had brought him a Christmas present, like just
Yeah.
her being there is the best gift of all.
And being
And
alive again.
being alive, and it's nice, but it's also kind of like undercutted by the fact that he's like right before that moment he's like, ah, now that my mom is like back to normal, his life is going to change because he has to be even more devious,
Now he has
in
to
order.
get around her as well.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, my mom's back, but now I can't do whatever I want, so
Oh, I have to go to schools.
I know, first world problems for this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so what did you think? Are you still prepared to give it a 3.5, 4-star rating, or have you
Yeah, I
gone
think.
again? Have you realized you enjoyed it more?
Yeah, I think going over with you definitely, like I would say like 4 stars for sure. It was, as a kid, it was definitely 5 stars for me. I think the writing and the world building was really great. I loved a lot of the characters. And like thinking back on like the next couple books, like the stuff that happens, it just gets even more cool and even more exciting. They bring back Malt. He's not gone. He's not gone for good. Like he's still going to be around. And the dynamic between Artemis and Holly gets deeper, I guess. Like their relationship becomes deeper because they kind of have to work together, as opposed to just being, enemies sort of in this situation because she was like a hostage. So I think that's like really cool. So it's like for a first book, it's like it really hits a lot of like good notes.
And the epilogue at the end is like back to the psych that wrote the introduction to that wrote the prologue, and it goes like, now that you've reviewed the case file, like you must realize how dangerous he was. There's a tendency to romanticize Artemis and to attribute to him qualities that don't exist. The fact that his was to heal his mother is not a sign of affection. He simply did it because social services was already investigating his case, and it was only a matter of time before he was put into care. All right. And then it goes on to mention like a couple of further incidences between like Holly and Artemis, and she becomes like the Artemis Fowl expert, and like she's the number one like human interaction person for the Left Recon team. Like so there's clearly like a lot of other stories that are like gonna come about. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how like they mentioned that he's like the people's most feared enemy. And it's like even in like the future books, like everyone is like, oh my god, Artemis Fowl, that stupid kid, just getting on their nerves. And like he's like, details are 94% accurate, 6% unavoidable extrapolation.
Oh, yeah,
like we just had to put this in for it to make sense. It's because it's almost like he wrote this like book, and I kind of felt like this is the case file. Like here's all the stuff that happened. I'm like writing it down, and like reviewing it. It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. And also to not give spoilers for like the other books, but the fact that Artemis, like he does get evaluated by like other psych people like not like this guy is like the LEP psych person, right? But
Yeah.
later on, people are like, yeah, like clearly there's something wrong with this kid because he's really, really smart, but also like kind of evil. And like other people, like adults, take notice and they're like, huh, we need to like think about what's going on with him.
Yeah, and like I think he ends up getting a counselor anyway, right? He ends up with a therapist.
Therapist, yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
pretty much he has to like sort his shit out, and like Holly ends up going to therapy as well because she's like not doing well with having been trapped. But I think that they approach it really, really well, like with all of that kind of like mental health stuff and like the fact that his childhood wasn't necessarily great, and the fact that he's super smart doesn't mean that he can shut everybody out, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Holly basically ends up being his best friend. Sorry to spoil it for everybody. Yeah. Anyway, so that's great. I don't know. Anything else you want to say on the book? You excited for the movie?
Yeah, I think my hopes for the movie definitely have gone up rereading it. But yeah, I would say that if you haven't read the book, or if you've already read the book, definitely read the rest of the series. I think looking back on it, I only read up to the Time Paradox was the last book that I read.
Yeah, me too, I think.
And it looks like there's 3 more, or there's 2 more. Then there's like the Fowl twins, which I guess is a spin-off, maybe.
Yeah, I have no idea. I haven't actually looked into it. I kind of stopped reading when I was in high school, and then I've only really returned recently.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's really cool. I'm excited to maybe go back and reread some of the other books. I wonder. I really have no idea how this like series ends, right? Like I haven't read the last book, but it's just kind of like each adventure is just getting more and more like outrageous, and more magical creatures get involved, and like the relationship between Artemis and Holly gets even better, and you're like, oh my god, are they gonna like be best friends at the end? Are they going to be mortal enemies at the end? Like, who knows? Like, oh my gosh, every single time. Because clearly, like, no one in the fairy world likes Artemis. Like, no one else, like, Holly's kind of tolerating him because he's, like, useful. But everyone else is like, oh my god, this human, like, outsmarted us. Like, this is unacceptable.
Yeah. It causes issues with the fairy council, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's great. I like, I think really good I guess young adult children's, not really young adult, it's more of like this is like geared for children, right? Like younger kids.
It's young adult, so it's like the 10 to 14 kind of age group, I think, is what they're marketing it for.
Okay, yeah,
because you do need some comprehensive reading ability.
For sure, yeah. And it's still like, I think it's still pretty enjoyable as like, you know, a current adult. I like to think of myself as a current adult, but still pretty
Really?
enjoyable to read.
You think you're an adult?
I mean, I pay rent, I pay taxes. I did my own taxes this year for the first time. That was fun.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
I've never not done my own taxes. Anyway, that's...
I'm sorry.
No, that's a lie. When I was living in the States, I didn't do my taxes because I didn't want to get it wrong and then have your government come at me.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. So, yeah, not really keen on that. Anyway.
Yeah, but thanks for spurring me to read this again. It was great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you picked it, so you got your choice of book.
True.
Cool. Do you have anything to plug?
To plug? Read more books. Reading is great. I forgot how much I used to love it, and the passion has been reignited. So
Woohoo!
Yeah, but I assume if people listen to this podcast, they probably still like books. So even better.
I hope so.
More.
Or they're...
Read even more.
Yay! Alright, cool. So you can follow us on social media. We are at TReadLightly and Facebook, Instagram. You can email us at treadlightlypod@gmail.com if you think we've missed something in this book, or if you have a book you want to recommend us. You can check out our website, which is treadlightlypod.com. You can donate to help support us. You can, I think we have merch up now. It's very exciting. Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, I know. It's very exciting.
Fancy. Oh boy.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have merch yet, but this episode won't come out for like 6
Ooh,
weeks.
yet,
so.
you heard that here, folks. Yet.
I'm cutting this bit out. But, because this won't be published for 6 weeks or so. So
6 weeks. Oh man, I was so looking forward to listening to myself talk again, or us talk together. But yeah.
All right.
Edit all this out, so it doesn't matter, I guess. Oh boy.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've merch. Or we're working on having merch, so we'll hopefully have merch by the time this episode airs.
Merch pending.
Merch pending. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's all of my pluggables, so thanks for listening, I guess. I've never hosted an episode by myself. It's very weird.
I'm still here.
Yeah, but like, you don't do this weekly.
You should invite me back more often then.
Maybe we'll see if we can get all three of us to review a book.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what the fans say if they want me back. Gotta ask your listeners, whatever their thoughts were. Was I charming? Was I intellectually honest?
If you want Mike back, just leave a comment down below on Spotify, Apple Music.
iTunes.
I think it is iTunes. That's it. Isn't it changed? It's not iTunes anymore. I swear it's Apple Podcasts or Apple Music.
I mean, I don't know. I have an Android. I use Spotify for my stuff.
Yeah, so we're on Spotify as well. You can follow us on Spotify. Also listen to us on YouTube. You can leave a comment if you like Mike. You want him back, just let us know.
Wee.